slides. So it's really my pleasure to be speaking with Rabbi Dr. Avraham Skorka again. And before we talk, I would like to share with the audience a little bit about your background and who you are. Professor and Rabbi Avraham Skorka is from Argentina and is a scholar, a rabbi, a book author, a leading figure in interfaith dialogue, and a biophysicist. He is certainly what we call a Renaissance man. In addition to being an ordained rabbi, Professor Skorka received his PhD in chemistry at the University of Buenos Aires and has published scientific papers in the field of biophysics, as well as numerous articles in the field of biblical and Talmudic research. Rabbi Skorka was both rector and professor of biblical and rabbinic literature for 20 years at the Latin American Rabbinical Seminary in Buenos Aires, the rabbi of the Jewish community of B'nai Tikva, an honorary professor of Hebrew law at the University of Salvador in Buenos Aires. Rabbi Skorka also developed a deep friendship with the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, who today is Pope Francis. Rabbi Skorka and then Archbishop Bergoglio, later Pope Francis, held a series of interfaith talks on television, focusing on topics such as God, fundamentalism, atheism, death, and the Holocaust. These interfaith dialogues were eventually published in a book titled On Heaven and Earth. From 2018 to 2021, Professor and Rabbi Skorka served as visiting university professor at the Institute for Jewish Catholic Relations at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. And I am happy to say that Professor Skorka is now serving as visiting distinguished professor at Gratz College. So Professor Skorka, thank you again for going through these interviews, because there is so much that you have experienced that I think is important for the world to know. So my first question for today is, could you speak a little bit about how you met Pope Francis? What were the circumstances under which you met him? Of course, in Argentina, he was then the Archbishop. But it would be wonderful to find out how the two of you met.
Professor Sandberg, thank you so much for your kind, nice introduction of my person. In order to answer to your question, I would divide my answer, in order to do that in a proper way, into two parts. Mm-hmm. One part is the circumstantial part, but the other part, the most important, is what moved current Pope Francis, then the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, to approach me, to open a door for our acquaintance, and a special acquaintance that and to be a very good friendship. Bergoglio, the then Archbishop, today's Pope, is inspired, was and is and continues being inspired by the teachings of the Second Vatican Council. And the relationship with the Jews, as you well know, has a very important expression on the documents of this council, especially Nostra Aetate. So he had the intention, he had the will to come in touch and to maintain a very good dialogue, but in the deep sense of the word dialogue with the Jews, not merely a dialogue as it was in the beginning, after Nostra Aetate, or even before Nostra Aetate, a dialogue that Rabbi Kleniki very well in his time defined as with the words tea and sympathy. No, Bergoglio really wished to have a dialogue, which means commitment from one towards the other, to analyze openly the burning themes, existential themes. And so this was one of his items, of the challenge that he had in his mind when he met me, and why he met me, why he chose me, is I ask myself. And the answer that, and afterwards I will tell you how was the way, the circumstantial way. I published in Argentina in the paper that he used to read day by day, named La Nación, articles about Jewish themes, about Jewish concerns. For instance, when the central institution of the Buenos Aires community blew up, so I published articles and so on and so on. But in many of those articles, I stressed the point that it's very, very important, the dialogue, the interfaith dialogue. Now let us go to the other point, to how were the circumstances. Without entering into details, I am a sympathizer of the what you call soccer, South American soccer, and we call in Latin America football. And I am a sympathizer of a team named River Plate. And he is a sympathizer of a team named San Lorenzo, Saint Lawrence, because the founder of this team was a priest and is related to Catholicism. So he began joking with me. Really, imagine yourself. I used to look himself. Okay, I was director then of the rabbinical seminary. So I had a position, a very important representative position, right, with whom he could maintain a dialogue on several themes and in several levels. So in several levels. So these were other things that I considered that he that were important for him. And so he began joking with me, and I felt that the distance between he and me, that he from through his jokes, he closed the distance, and he began to be very close to me. For instance, after he was elected fourth cardinal by John Paul II, is my wife and a lot of people knew about the jokes that he joked with me about football. And my wife told me, oh, now that he is a cardinal, you are not going to talk with him about football and joke with him about football. And as I met him first time for a special event that he prepared, calling for peace in the Middle East in the days of the war of Iraq, is the first thing, the first sentence, oh, how are you? Did you realize how bad the Boca Juniors, another theme of football, is playing now? What is okay? So he formed, he created very familial atmosphere
Right,
among
He
us.
also remembered you. He remembered that the two of you had spoken about soccer or football
Yes,
previous.
yes.
Amazing, really amazing. And so your friendship built from that point on,
Yes,
and it
yes,
and
yes.
I'm assuming it deepened, and you got more and more involved with him in
Yeah,
interfaith affairs.
really, it was a process. And I thought, okay, this person who is the Archbishop of one of the most important cities throughout Catholic cities throughout the world. So God propitiated the meeting between us. So I have to do something with him.
Right.
And he opened more and more the doors and his disposition to work with me. So I invited him twice, for instance, to my synagogue in Buenos Aires for slichot. Slichot are the preparing prayers for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the day in which, according to our tradition, God judges, it's the great judgment of God on humanity. So on those preparations, on the first night, because the saying, the recitation of Slichot begins on the first night after the end of the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. Twice I invited him to my synagogue. The synagogue, of course, was full up with people. And I told him, okay, give us a message. You, as Archbishop, give a message to many Jews who are living in Buenos Aires, in which you are the Archbishop, okay, for the Catholics. Right. But our idea of interfaith dialogue is maybe that you have something to say to us as Jews in this very important occasion. And both of the speeches that he delivered really were absolutely, I would say, in quotation signs, Jewish. He quoted and analyzed verses from the Hebrew Bible, and he quoted Genesis and Nehemiah's and Jewish history, and from a spiritual Jewish standpoint, he delivered ideas of spirituality in a very broad sense, in a very delicate sense. And this was something very important for him. He afterwards invited me to teach in the seminary of Buenos Aires, a very important the Metropolitan Seminary.
A Catholic seminary?
The Catholic seminary, of course, where the priests are formed. They are studying there. They are formed as priests. And since then, we used to meet to dialogue. And I remember how I looked on him and he looked on me, and I used to ask him, okay, what is going to be our next project? So we wrote a book together, and immediately after the book, we recorded 31 programs in the television on the same style of the book. Dialogue. We had a moderator from the evangelical church, interesting, and he introduced us, and he introduced the theme, and we speak one with the other about family, about happiness, about a lot of themes, of burning themes, but not just theological themes. No, the themes that each person, the man of the street, the human being from the street could have an interest to hear us, to follow us in our dialogues. It's very interesting. Many times, being on Buenos Aires streets, people approach me and told me, I'm no religious. Catholic people, Jewish people, I'm no religious. I don't go, I don't assist to the synagogue. I don't assist to the church. But your dialogues, your talks make me good, make me well. Wow. This was I'm translating. I am translating from Spanish. Yeah, literally. Why? Because this was the idea, to show how, first and foremost, how a Catholic cardinal with a rabbi are together, and how a dialogue, what means a dialogue, how a dialogue should be, because dialogue is not only to sit and to speak merely. No, we open our heart one to the other. On certain
and that takes trust. That takes trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the key work of the relationship between he and me until this very day. Wow, I know, and he knows that no one of us is going to break the loyalty towards the other. Oh, that's this is the key word. And of course, now we have a really friendship. And I talk with him about familial issues, and with him. There are very important, in the middle occurred very important things. In the middle, I mean, before he was elected Pope, in the middle of the stories that I told you. For instance, I invited him to write a prologue to a book that I wrote about faith, towards a morning with faith, or without, hacia un mañana sin fe, it's in Spanish, towards a morning without faith. Is I asked from him to prologue the book, and not only that, I invited him to the rabbinical seminary to be one of the speakers in the presentation of the book. And the other face of the coin, as we used to say in Spanish, is that when two journalists prepared a book about his biography, but the author's biography, because they met him and he knew perfect that they are preparing a biography, and he answered to many of the questions that they asked him. So when they asked him, who would you like to write, to be the one that writes the prologue to this book? Immediately he said Rabbi Skorka. Wow. He said, when I heard that, this is unbelievable. Yeah. The author's biography of a cardinal, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, is introduced as a prologue from a Jew, from a rabbi. And the other anecdote that I would like to share with you is that in Buenos Aires, there is a very important Catholic university, I would say maybe the most important, which is the Pontifical Catholic University of Buenos Aires, Pontificia Universidad Católica de Buenos Aires. And on the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the beginning of the sessions of the Second Vatican Council, they prepared a very, very, very important ceremony with really, literally thousands of assistant people in a big salon of university, and alongside the salon of the university, they put the screens, and many others could follow this ceremony through the screens. And in this ceremony, and he was behind that because he was the great chancellor of the university, the university bestowed on me a PhD honoris causa, the first Jew that the university bestows it. But I felt that this is not only a matter of my person. I felt that I am the representative of many Jews. In the history of Argentinian church, many anti-Semitic factors were enacted badly in the relationships between Jews and Catholics, and he demonstrated through this the honorary PhD that it demonstrated his filigracy, his people, that the relationship with the Jews must be quite different. And so many other things.
Wow. So I want to talk a little bit about the book that the two of you are authored. So it started as an outgrowth of the television programs that you did. Is that, I just wanted to clarify that. So the book On Heaven and Earth, that is, it started out initially as a television program, or was the book separate from it?
Really, first we wrote the book, and afterwards, first we wrote the book, and afterwards, on the style of the book, we continue with the other dialogues.
Oh, wow! So that was just the starting point. So what gave the two of you the idea to write such a book? Because it covers so many different ideas, which we'll come back to. So what gave you this impetus to write?
I will tell you very simply. He tried to do something very important in the relationships in Argentina, and now he is doing that for the whole world in the relationship with the Jews. And for me, it was very important to do, to produce things that could give and mark an impact that could work as a turning point in the relationship of the dialogue between Jews and the Catholics. But our dialogue was always very respectful from one toward the others. And never one pressure make a pressure on the other. So he opened the door for the writing of such book. Someday, my idea was to show that we can work together on theological themes. So someday I came to him and told him, you know what, I am thinking about writing a book about God. I can write a chapter, you can write a chapter, we can ask relevant people, relevant theologians to write chapters about God. He said, no, I have not psychological time. So he told me in Spanish. 1 month after, he calls me and tells me, we are going to write a book, but a book about burning themes. What occurs, about the themes that the simple a person who walks on the street, the simple street person, has a special interest to write about. And the first point was, we are going to speak openly. You can ask what you wish. I am going to look. I expressed myself absolutely openly when we analyze Pius XII. What Pius, the behavior of Pius XII during Second World War. And I said, okay, could be that I'm almost verbatim answering you, could be that that Pius XII saved a lot of Jews through his silence, but he condemned a lot of Jews through his silence. And his answer was, okay, we must open the archives and know the truth. And he did that. Yes. Of course.
Amazing. Amazing.
And he did that on March, the 3rd March 2020, the archives were open even 7 or 8 years before the mandatory the custom or that the Vatican follows for the opening of the archives. But I would like to tell you very briefly an anecdote which I do consider very interesting and very important. The day when his brother passed away, I went to the funeral house in order to express him my condolences. So we began talking about all kind things about life, about, what can we talk in such circumstances or that place. So suddenly, I don't know, one theme went to the other, and suddenly I asked him, tell me, why did you choose me to write a prologue for the book, for your biography? So his immediate answer was, without hesitation, without thinking, what immediately after I asked him, what his answer was, because such it came out from my heart. Wow. This is Bergoglio, and this is the essence of our relationship.
That is just an amazing story. Well, we're almost out of time, but I did want to just go back to the book a little bit. It covers so many major religious and social issues. There are, I think, 29 or 30 different sections. Of all of the subjects, I mean, you talk about God, the devil, euthanasia, science, even the Holocaust, poverty. What do you feel is the most meaningful part of the book, and the most the deepest memory that you have of the process of writing the book?
It was very interesting the way through which we wrote the book and through which we recorded the television programs. Why? Because it was very spontaneous. We know exactly what we tried to say. We thought about that, or all of them were themes that we already analyzed and had a very clear idea and opinion about them. But I remember, for instance, when we recorded the television programs, that I remained exhausted because we recorded 2 programs, one after the other, and without talking about, without arranging things before. It was spontaneously that we spoke. And we had to concentrate in order to say exactly what, to express exactly our ideas. And I remember how one looked on the other in order to know exactly when the other finished, in order to produce a very clear dialogue. And it were really very intensive spiritual moments. So regarding your question, of course, the chapter of the Shoah was very important for me. But we spoke about other problems very important. For instance, the equalitarian marriage. Yeah, that in Argentina it was established that people of the same sex can marry. And in our time, the time of our dialogues. So how to analyze this, what to say, how to say it, or when we analyze together the time of the dictatorship of the generals, the government of the generals, when so many people missed and were killed. So were very intensive moments.
I bet, yeah, that's right. But what's so amazing to me is that throughout all of it, you are able to speak the truth from your faith and from your heart, and so is he. And that is, to me, not just a model of interfaith dialogue, but it's also a model of true friendship, the deepest type of friendship that people can share together. So I think in so many ways, the two of you are role models for the world to follow, because it sends a message of hope, and it sends a message of compatibility and friendship that I think the world really can learn from. So I thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about your experiences with Pope Francis and the writing of the book. And I know it continues to be of interest to people. People still buy the book every day. And it's made I think it's made a major impact on the concept of interfaith and dialogue throughout the world. So thank you so much, Professor Rabbi Skorka, and I look forward to our next interview. Thank you so much again. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.